Let's kick this exciting webinar off. I'm Lena, and I'm responsible for product marketing at Mavenoid, and I'm here to introduce Courtney Goodsell, who will be our host for today's webinar. And she's going to talk about making your online help center future-proof. And I want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items before we jump into our content. So this webinar will run for a full hour, and we have about 45 minutes worth of actionable and insightful content from Courtney. She's going to cover the evolution of product support, and she's going to talk about strategies for making your help center future-proof. And then we're going to have about 10 to 15 minutes worth of time for our Q&A, and Courtney will answer any questions that you may have to her. And don't hesitate to drop your questions in the Zoom chat or use the Q&A option at any time, because we will be going over all of your questions at the end of the webinar. And if you want to make the most of this event, please join our product support community on Slack. We have an events channel, and you can jump there, share your learnings and insights, and discuss them with your peers. And let's talk a little bit about Courtney. So she's running one of our product teams here at Mavenoid, and it's time for you to get ready to be inspired and educated by her. I'm really excited for this webinar because I was there for the dry run, and there's some really interesting insights that Courtney is about to share with us. And the reason why Courtney is hosting this webinar is because her team has been hyper-focused recently on reimagining the help center experience for Mavenoid customers. We're not going to talk about it during this webinar, but stay tuned. We'll tell you more about this exciting update in the coming weeks. And let me just quickly go over some of today's topics, just to give you a heads up about the things that we're going to discuss. So Courtney will walk you through the evolution of product support and where we are today with it. And she's going to share 4 actionable strategies for future-proofing your help center. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you will walk away with actionable strategies that you can start using with your team to make your online help center future-proof. And just to remind you, as you're listening to Courtney walking you over her insights and learnings, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in chat or use the Q&A feature in Zoom. Like I said, at the end of the webinar, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions you may have on this topic. And this webinar is recorded, so don't worry if you need to hop off a little earlier. We'll be sharing the recording with you after the fact. At the same time, I do recommend you to stay for the full hour, because you will get a chance to listen to Courtney answering your questions and questions from your peers. And with that, I am handing it over to Courtney. Please take us away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lena. That was a lovely introduction. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And welcome, everybody. Really excited to be hosting this webinar today. As Lena mentioned, we'll be looking at the evolution of product support and what this means for future-proofing your online help center. But as a wise man once said, to look to the future, we want to start looking at the past. And that's exactly how we're going to jump into today's session. And we're going to start off in 1901 off a tiny Greek island called Antikythera. And in Antikythera, there was a group of divers, sponge divers, that discovered a shipwreck. And now on this shipwreck, they found loads of cool items like vases and coins and statues. But they also found this big lump of metal. And okay, it may not have been as exciting at the time, but now in 2021, we actually discovered or had to rethink about ancient technology. And that's because this discovery, in fact, was our oldest known computer. And this oldest known computer dates back to 87 BC. But what was really cool about this discovery, in fact, was how we were able to rebuild it. So these archaeologists were able to pretty easily rebuild the front of this device, but were somewhat struggling with the back. Now, through X-rays, they were able to find on the back of this device, etched into it, was a list of features and instructions on how to use this device. And this helped them not only understand that this device was used to calculate the cycles of the moon and the stars, but also it allowed them to rebuild that back. So here we can really see the first example of future-proof product support. But then we'll jump into the first of our big revolutions, which is the Industrial Revolution. And you can't mention the Industrial Revolution without the invention of the steam engine, invented by James Watt. And what else he invented, you may not know, is also a copying machine. And on this copying machine, he essentially used it because he thought his instructions and notes would be better used by his colleagues. But what was also cool is that we found the instructions of how to use this portable copying machine glued to the machine itself. So even back in the Industrial Revolution, when we're seeing our first kind of complex technology enter in, we're seeing a need for being able to direct the user wherever they need it. But then we move into the science and mass production era, and this is where we're taking our complex goods and taking them to market. And this customer demand, led to more efficiencies. And with those efficiencies, we had more inventions, such as the assembly line, mostly notably coined to Henry Ford, of course. But with this mass production of goods, it meant that these complex goods were no longer just for experts, and they were more likely to be in the hands of our end users. And this is where we start jumping into our probably most exciting up until where we are now, revolution, and mainly because we were there to witness a significant portion of this. But John Haynes in 1960, he found a gap in the market. Because we had all of these complex goods in the hands of our customers now, they were still being sent out with these long techie manuals. And because of that, John Haynes had identified that if I use more visual guidance, then our users will get more out of their products. But very quickly after that, we see a massive rise, or a massive shift, sorry, I should say, into how we perceive products and most importantly, services. So in the previous eras, we were operating on a more transactional basis, but with the rise of call centers, with the rise of companies going online and the dot-com boom, and then in 2002, email becoming available everywhere, we turned into more of a service-led approach. So meaning that we weren't just providing products to our customers and then moving on to the next innovation. We were taking those products and identifying that as an opportunity to get more usage out of them and create more loyal customers to buy products in the future. But also within this era, we see the launch of the iPhone. And one of the things that we see with the launch of the iPhone, or what they're most known for, of course, is its intuitive design. And because of the intuitive design, it's very rare that you'll see an Apple product with a 1,000-page manual with techie information or techie terminology included. But Steve Jobs and Wozniak actually drew some inspiration here from a man named John Carroll. And John Carroll, in the 1990s, worked for a company you may know called IBM. And Carroll was a linguistic psychologist, and at IBM, he was tasked essentially with taking a complex computer and making it work for the average user. And what he did with this is that he studied the average user. He gave them a computer and gave them a manual, the typical manual that it comes with, so a long techie one. And from that, Carroll monitored these average users for frustration episodes. And during his study, he even had one person walk out, put their coat on and leave. They were that frustrated and unable to complete their tasks. And what Carol deduced from this is that taking a more minimalist approach in directing users actually encourage what true learning, or what he dubbed as true learning, to be. And this learning was active learning, on active engagement. And there were some skeptics pushing back on Carol at the time, saying that there wasn't enough theoretical foundation within these documents when we're taking a minimalist approach. But also Carol looked into this as well and identified that if we were to educate the user, they're engaged in their learning with simple instructions, that when it came to more complex tasks later on down the line, they were more equipped, they were more knowledgeable about the product, and also they're more engaged in the product to make those choices. So by the end of this revolution, we've gone from a need or a change in how we sell and service our products. We've changed how we provide content or instructions to our customers, but also we see the launch of, or an understanding through the launch of customer support tools such as Zendesk, HubSpot and Freshworks. There's a need to become more efficient, especially as volume increases as we lead into more of a service-led organization. But that is where we've been. But where are we now? And we are, in fact, in the intelligence era. So taking all of our work that was put into place in the digital era and putting it to work intelligently. And fundamentally, the intelligence era, it's also dubbed the fourth revolution or Industry 4.0, whichever way you want to look at it. It's underpinned, or positioned to be underpinned by four leading technologies. One being artificial intelligence, other being virtual reality and augmented reality, IoT, and blockchain. Now, there will be some skeptics amongst us looking at some of these examples, but it's clear that we're in different stages with each of these technologies, and we're in a period of identifying where we apply these technologies. So one of those stories we can take from blockchain as an example, where before cryptocurrency was going to be the next big thing. It may still be. But when we're looking at it in terms of the product support context, maybe in the future, it could be better utilized for secure data sharing. But maybe it's something that's not quite there yet. But where we can see some monumental movement, of course, is with artificial intelligence. So with the intelligence era kicking off in 2016, it's only now, or most recently, that it's been understood more widely by the general public. So you may have heard of a little thing called ChatGPT, which has essentially put a user interface onto AI, meaning that although we're operating with it for a number of years, this has now entered into mass market adoption. So here we can start thinking about how we can better utilize AI to serve our existing content, and how we can look to create that content as well. But there are also some other technologies that we need to consider or keep an eye on, most certainly with the likes of virtual reality and augmented reality. So we had the Oculus, which entered into the market, but of course, not everyone's got a VR headset next to them. But maybe in the future, we'd need to start reevaluating how we are selling our products. Maybe we introduce interactive experience into virtual reality. And even from a support context, looking at augmented reality, where maybe we introduced AR or augmented product manuals where we guide the user visually through the troubleshooting steps. And then the last one before we jump off onto the next slide is, of course, IoT. So something that's ingrained in many of our customers' strategies. So our products are getting a lot smarter. So now in the intelligence era, how are we going to apply that in a support context? And looking at our customers and seeing where our opportunities lie. But with the intelligence era, it sounds pretty smart, but what's the reality? Well, we're at the start of our revolution, and perhaps we're still working with the tools and processes from our previous eras. And when we're thinking about future-proofing our online help centres, we need to take a look at what our current landscape looks like. So with an online help centre, an idea is to be able to serve content without a customer being able or needing to go through to customer support. But the reality may be that we have a disjointed self-service experience. We're managing content in multiple platforms. We still have queries coming into human channels. We have pretty poor experience on our FAQ pages. And the result of that, of course, is that we have a lack of actionable insights, and it's why we're joining webinars like this today to understand of how do we get into a better state in order to future-proof our help centres. But before we jump into how we're actually going to do that and some actionable tips on future-proofing the help centre, we want to get a bit of an understanding from you guys what your main goals for your help centre is. And I've just seen the poll pop up on the screen. So Lena, over to you.
Yes, before we started talking about the actionable strategies that we can use to future-proof the help center, we're really curious to learn what are the main goals of your help center. Are you looking to reduce the number of customer support tickets and the support costs? Are you hoping to increase customer satisfaction and loyalty with making your help center more usable and useful to your customers? Or maybe you want to educate your customers and potentially start upselling products or services by directing them to the help center that would have full information on your full range of products. Or maybe it's all of the above, or even something else. If it's something else, please don't hesitate to drop your answer into the chat, because we're really, really curious to see what it is that you're optimizing for when maintaining and updating your help center. And it looks like the majority of our webinar participants already cast their vote. So I'm going to end our poll here and share the results for everyone who's curious. It seems like all of the above is what the majority of people answered. And again, I'm really curious to see if maybe there is actually a different goal, not the one that we captured here, that you're optimizing for. So please share it with us. And I can see that there is Chris, who's saying that for them, it's all interconnected. And yeah, 100% by educating customers, we can reduce the number of tickets and decrease customer frustrations, which I think we're all here for. So thanks for sharing your thoughts. And now over to you again, Courtney. Let's talk about the 4 actionable strategies for making the help center as future-proof as it gets.
Sorry, I'm struggling to find the unmute button, but of course. Yeah. Okay, now we're back in the room. No, but it's really interesting. And Chris, you've made my exact next point, I believe, which is, what does a successful help centre look like? And we're looking at how all of these things are interconnected. And we've kind of coined the acronym of DAMU, or more accurately, DAMU if you don't. That for a successful help centre, we need 5 key things. So 1, we need to ensure that it's discoverable. And the next, answering queries about the need for intervention. We need to make sure it's measurable. We need to meet the needs of the audience, and we need to ensure it has up-to-date information, and most importantly, relevant information. But with all of that, it can't answer any queries if it's not discoverable. If it's not discoverable, it's not measurable. If it's not measurable, we don't know if it's meeting the needs of our audience. And if it's not meeting the needs of our audience, we're not providing relevant information. So absolutely, Chris, like absolutely on the same page. All of these things are connected. So what do we do about it? we're going to look at 4 key areas. So we can take some learnings from our history lesson leading up to here, in that, of course, the majority of this is focused on a user-centered approach, but some of this we can tackle more directly with a user-centered design. The second thing is looking about how we direct customers to the support channels that will give them the answers that they need, rather than just merely deflecting them away from our channels. Then we'll be looking at integrations and what a smooth escalation process looks like. And then also how we can utilize this end-to-end process to continuously maintain our help center and gain some insights from that. All right, let's get into it then. So we're going to kick off with our first section of user-centered design. And here we're looking at navigation and usability. And I can't imagine many people will be shocked to hear this, but one of the common mistakes, of course, within help center design is that the organization structure is, or the structure, sorry, is mainly disorganized. And this has contributed to many links, many categories, just a lot of text and hyperlinks presented to an end user. And what this means is that we have users coming in that aren't able to differentiate between information that is important to them versus information that isn't. And this can very quickly overwhelm users and give them a bit of decision paralysis. And this will ultimately lead to customers skipping that section or self-service entirely and defaulting to human-led channels. The same thing could be said when we're implementing poor search. And one key sign or symptom we can see of poor search is that agents are directing end users to existing articles. So if they're coming through and an agent is already sharing information to the end user that's available to them, we are not navigating or allowing them to navigate through that site in a way that leads them to the same answer. And then similarly, we see with weaker artificial intelligence or chatbots more frequently, is we see this response of, sorry, I don't understand you, and often with a really annoying broken heart emoji next to it. And this, again, is showcasing that the user isn't being led to an answer or also to an escalation channel. So what do we do about it? So we can take some inspiration from our friend John Carroll at IBM on conducting a user-centered design review. So here we can look at key navigation areas around your help center or your support services and get an idea of where they're getting frustrated. Look at your common questions and your common queries and see how they're led there in the first place. And you may see or identify some core points of that user journey, which you can bucket up and make it a lot simpler for the end user to find. And some that can be applied more generally across many organizations, of course, is utilizing topics and categories. And this can really help differentiate between the type of query that a user's coming in with. So differentiating between your how do I do this, versus your I have a problem with X. And this can be done by utilizing product categories and lead them into a specific area versus just having an area for your FAQs, which may be related to more business processes, etc. But another way that we can easily guide users, especially when we're looking at large product portfolios, is utilizing imagery. And that can help to reduce customer effort. So here, if you have, they may not know the name of their product, they may not have their serial number to hand, but if we can guide them with imagery, it allows them to easily identify that they're in the right place and they have more trust in the results that they're seeing. Then the next thing, so moving away from the design review and how we categorize, it's more looking around how we provide contextual help. So we see our support center and we think of just one page, an FAQ hub, which is your host for all content. But how do we actually provide help where the customer needs it? So Here, looking at where the customer is, maybe it's on a product page, maybe it's a checkout page, and contextualizing what type of help they'll need in that situation, rather than forcing them to search your whole library. But then the last thing is we can look to introduce natural language understanding. And this is where we can really draw attention to the smarts here. So where we are in the intelligence era, we're getting more trusting in this search. So give your customers a bit of a nod that they can express themselves in the way they need to. They don't need to put any effort in to trying to attempt any keyword matching. Again, looking at key areas that we can reduce that customer effort. And we have two examples on our next slide here of how we can implement some of these recommendations. So on the left-hand side, where I spoke about introducing contextual help, we have De'Longhi here on their product purchasing pages. And in the bottom right-hand corner, they identified a case for helping a user purchase a copy machine, but also within the same context, there are users potentially looking for manuals on these product pages. So here they're giving both options. So picking a pre-sales option or an existing customer option. Then on the right-hand side, we're looking at an AI guided experience, where we're utilizing natural language understanding. You can see on screen now, typing in buzzing, but also from the high level categories and images really helps guide the user through, and certainly more so with more links and an overcrowded hub. But the next thing in user-centered design is, so we've managed with our previous recommendations to guide the user to what they were looking for. But now what happens when we're presenting them with the solution? And we typically see lengthy articles, and this won't be a surprise to many of you. But the reason why we find this most typically is because they're written from a writer's point of view rather than the end user's point of view. And what we mean by this is typically that we have a need within our business to share all of this information about our products. And we know that we need to have that information there, but then we don't consider how we're guiding that user, getting them engaged with that content, and ultimately solving that query. But with these lengthy articles, it means that customers get a bit overwhelmed, they get a bit disengaged, and especially when we're looking at mobile as a channel, thinking about how long articles look and feel with on a mobile device may become overwhelming. And ultimately, the consequence of all of these things is that customers will see, hey, I don't have time to read through this article. It'll be quicker if I just go and talk to an agent. So here we're looking at some recommendations. So we're looking at the first one, which was guiding the user to the relevant content, and we covered that in the first slide. The second thing is then breaking it down into multiple step-by-step guides, especially when you have breaking it down, and then if you have multi-step, breaking it down into step-by-step guides. On the right-hand side, you can see an example here, in fact, of how one of our customers has broken down their content into step-by-step chunks, but also introduced screenshots and imagery to help guide that user as well. Also, better used throughout the process as well. If you have any existing content, such as YouTube videos, etc., try and bring that to help supplement some of the written instructions, giving end users a bit of an option of how they want to learn. And the final thing, which we can implement across the board, is looking at including a time to perform. So if we're thinking that customers might be overwhelmed and bounce, let's give them some expectations on how long it will take for them to solve or to go through these steps. And this can really help to settle out some expectations. So we'll move on to the next slide. So to recap, we've gone through how we navigate, or how we allow users to navigate through and find the solution that they need. Then we're looking at, when we're providing the solution, how do we make it more legible? How do we encourage that active engagement, that active learning? But then now, how do we direct customers to that content in the first place? Or how do we let them know it's there? So this is typically come about because we see that customers are looking for support in unofficial channels. And when we're talking about being in the intelligence era, this fear has kind of been exacerbated with the rise of ChatGPT, where we're a bit nervous that customers are going to go to unofficial channels, get some content that isn't necessarily correct and certainly isn't under our control, and can have some consequences for our perception of our brand, but also the customer's product. And with focusing on deflection, we have these statements such as customers still prefer to call and email. And now in some cases, especially in most complex cases, they may do, but on a general basis, do they really? Or is it that they aren't aware of the channels or the capabilities of self-service channels? We need to remember that customers are still in the mindset that they're going to enter into static, long article FAQ pages, so they may still perceive it being easier to go to call or email. And ultimately, what this means is that if customers aren't aware of where they need to go for product support, they're essentially not unlocking the full potential of their product. And of course, we all want our customers to get the most out of our products. So what do we do about it? So here is looking at our end-to-end customer journey, essentially. So again, doing a bit of a review, and typically you'll have marketing teams that will have this neatly lined out for you and understanding your customer touch points. But looking at those customer touch points and understanding where in that user journey we can start incorporating awareness of these self-service options. So it may be, as we've mentioned with the DeLonghi example, from pre-purchase, but it may be for registration and onboarding. We want to introduce QR codes on the packaging, but also on the delivery status. Maybe we want to send some marketing comms of an introduction to your product. Here's a link if you want any further support. Then the second thing is looking about, okay, so they've purchased their product, but they're encountering a problem with their product. And so here we need to think about where our customers are in those situations. So are they in-app? Are they coming from Google? Are they in a call center queue? Or have they just wrapped up with the transcript from their call? Here's an opportunity where we can start redirecting those customers either prior to them entering into the support encounter or post that encounter to ensure they know where to look in the future. So we have a screenshot of an example that we have on screen here, where we have a customer utilizing their IVR system to send an SMS to the customer waiting in queue, which will redirect them either to the self-service support page or to a cheaper channel, such as live support. So redirecting away from call center queues and back to cheaper channels. And then the last thing is looking at the maintenance type stage. So we spoke briefly on IoT. So we have an abundance of data in some circumstances, which can really allow us to delve into things like predictive analytics. So if we have an understanding of if this customer were to service their product in this way, 6 months after purchase, it would prevent issues further down the line. Let's use this as an opportunity to direct them to their care and the care for that product, and maybe look at how we're proactively resolving issues. And we also have an example here from Markham and Marsh, and it's pretty awesome here that they've started utilizing awesome self-service or intelligent self-service here as a marketing tool. So not only is the blog post here and an email footer marketing the fact that they're innovative and they're looking into how they can better support their customers, but it's also acting as a means to draw attention to the fact that it's there. So directing customers away from channels that they're used to seeing and making them aware that these new channels are available and that they can get smart, or in this case, intelligent answers to printer issues. And then, okay, so recap again is that we went through user design. So we're navigating, we're guiding them with minimalist instructions then we're directing them to these instructions. And now we want to see what happens when they aren't able to get a solution to their problem. And this is where we're looking at a core pain in the typical help center experience. And this is that it's pretty static and not much personalization is available within that. And this leads to a bit of a disjointed escalation experience. And we can see this having a negative consequence further down the line, where we have frustrated customers coming into customer service reps, where they're having to repeat themselves of all the steps they've previously taken. And if they're already coming in with a problem and we're causing them more problems, they're only going to get more upset. So here's an opportunity to resolve that. So our recommendations here is firstly do a bit of a review and a removal of any dead ends. So I have an example in the top image of that. I see this quite regularly across FAQ articles, where we give them a long lengthy article and then we ask them to contact support, but with no immediate action of where to go, who to call, what's the most efficient channel, or where I'm looking for extra help. So essentially we've caused a dead end, and in this instant or that example, we've caused another number of seconds of frustration for that customer clicking around and trying to find where they need to go. So here we want to think about how we can streamline that process. And sometimes it's not always escalations into systems either, but also when they've just encountered a support experience, not leaving them at dead ends, but giving them an opportunity to provide feedback as well. And I'm sure we all want more feedback continuously, but by giving customers this, it also gives them a sense of they've got a voice in your brand. But as a consequence of this, as we're streamlining this process, you can see on the right-hand side where we've got an example from our Mavenoid escalation, where a customer's gone through describing their problem, step-by-step guides and solutions, but it's not worked. Then they'll go straight into our live support experience. And here is where we're really looking at how we can apply those technologies for more efficiency, where the customer enters into the live support queue. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the agents are provided with an AI summary of self-service. So not only are we improving the process of process on the end user side before they get to escalation, but we're also speeding up their experience once they've entered into the human escalation element. And all right, so we've covered pretty much end-to-end the customer journey into your help centers, and how we can make this more user-friendly and ultimately future-proof it by directing our customers there. But the final thing is how we continuously maintain our new improved help center. And typically this comes, we have problems such as, well, I've spoken to a number of our customers now, and all I'm hearing is that we just get thumbs up, thumbs down, and article views. And ultimately this leaves us with an abandoned channel, when essentially it's a core part of our support channels. And it means that we have no idea how good our help center is. And this is a quote, direct quote, I have no idea how good our help center is. So what we do, or what we've done with our customers, is looking at search gaps. So this could be a quick and easy way for us to understand where customers aren't able to find content, and utilizing things like our Mavenoid AI gap analysis. This is clustered, so it allows for quicker action. Where it's not clustered, I would look into volume of those searches, and then this will allow you to deduce what will be the most impactful solution or problem to address within your support structure. And on the right hand side, we've got an example of a customer that did this through Insights, which was essentially that they found that customers were looking for counterfeit, or they were searching for counterfeit quite regularly, or fakes. And what they identified was that they had fake products in the market, and customers were, or potential customers were, purchasing them and coming through to their support. And in a typical FAQ type style article, you would create this is counterfeit, like how to tell, is this product counterfeit? But in this example, our customer used it to their advantage. And what they did instead was offered a discount to those that were able to prove that their device was counterfeit. So they've turned a negative experience for that customer and turned them into a potential customer. So where we're looking at all of the above answers and we're encountering how do we upsell, here is certainly an example of how we could do that. But yes, so the next thing is looking for where users are escalating. And this will really help us understand the accuracy of the content that's already served. So if a customer has identified a problem, they've selected their problem, they've gone through a number of solutions, perhaps there's a solution that's not available in self-service that should be. And we can identify this through agents. We can do a review of our agents' actions performed, look about how we can utilize automation within our help centers in order to improve that process. But the last thing, or the most important thing, is of course always listen to your end users. So where we're saying about in our previous slides about always not giving them dead ends and directing them to feedback, we can also utilize their ratings and their comments to categorize that feedback, but also lean on our search gaps and also our resolution rates to be able to decide or understand the effectiveness of our help centre. And once we've wrapped all of that up, we have a pretty complete help centre. So to summarise what we've been through is looking at how we improve our navigation, how we improve our content to be more digestible, how we direct users to find that content and ultimately redirect them from more expensive channels, looking at how we can introduce a more efficient and streamlined escalation process, and then finally, with this guided experience, how we can gain some insights and implement them and action them quickly. And in summary, within this session, what have we learned? History has taught us that each revolution focuses on efficiency and user problems. So why should we stop there? The intelligence era is an opportunity era. We're still in the early stages and we've got an opportunity to start applying some of these technologies in a way that is optimized for our users and not just a blanket. We're implementing these technologies just for the sake of newness. But in order to future-proof our help centres and to apply those technologies correctly, we need to follow the Damn You approach. So it needs to be discoverable, questions need to be answered, it needs to be measurable, it needs to meet the needs of the user, and it needs to be up to date with relevant information. And I think my voice is breaking just at the right time. So with that, I will pass over to the Q&A.
Thank you, Courtney. And we actually have a couple of great questions lined up for you already. So we're going to start with one from Noel. And what he's saying is that they've been conducting customer interviews the last couple of months. So being customer-centric for the win. And those customer interviews were on their virtual assistant content. And one of the most common points of feedback is interactivity. They, i.e. the customers, are wanting more videos, GIFs, and images and less content. Traditionally, help centers are more text-based content. How can we make help centers more interactive and to fit that social media mindset? So what would be your recommendations here?
Absolutely. So it does boil down to how we're searching or how our customers are searching as well. So when we're breaking things down into guides. Essentially, we're serving it up in multiple places in that step-by-step instruction too. So when we're thinking about interactivity, this can be direct interactivity with the interface. So as we kind of went through in our navigation portion of our slides, starting off high level, how we're taking customers through, introducing images, but also taking those guides, making an FAQ type version perhaps. So the direct, how do I do this? Versus that I'm experiencing a problem. So again, directing the user there will allow that content to be more personalized and relevant for them. So what I'm saying by this, sorry, I'm losing my voice, is that if we can guide that customer there with follow-up questions. So if they've come in, let's say with their device isn't pairing, we can ask follow-up questions of, is this iOS? Is this Android? Direct them that way and only present them with that relevant content. And this is where we've already discussed this with the step-by-step guides and visual elements. The core part of that interactivity is those questions, because for that user, it's not only being interactive, but it's what that interactivity provides. And that interactivity provides a trust in that answer. So rather than here's a guide, they're saying, okay, what do I need help with? And then follow-up question, ensure they're serving up the relevant content and presenting it to that user.
Thanks for that. And Noel, please don't hesitate to let us know if you have any follow-up questions for Courtney. And before jumping into the next question, I want to remind everyone that you can use our Q&A feature or drop your questions in chat so that we can answer them for you. And I am hopping into the next question. So would you please elaborate on the filter by ratings and comments? How can Mavenoid help on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're mentioning about not leaving dead ends at the end of providing a solution to customers, it's also providing that feedback option. So within Mavenoid, you have your feedback card where a user can select their rating, but also provide a topic that contributed to that rating. So if they've, excuse me, if they've selected the most happy smiley face, let's say, they can say, I liked the topics, I liked the imagery, or other high-level categories that you want to get insight into. But then on top of that, you also have the option for customer comments. So here, when we're looking at, when you look at your analytics table within Mavenoid, you have a section for user feedback. And from that, you can filter by comment, filter by rating first, I'd recommend. And this will give you your 1 to 4 type rating. Focusing on the ones, what we can do is look at what contributed to that one. So first, we can click in. And this is the power of Mavenoid, of course, is that when you click in, you can review the whole transcript history of that customer and get an understanding of where they got frustrated. And off the back of that, it may be that in some cases, it will be a straight up no live support was available, and that will be the feedback. So maybe you can take that back and see at what hours that was available. But then we can also see why wasn't their issue solved in the first place. So from there, you have a full history of what the user has searched, what issues they've tried. And by reviewing that process, we can see directly what is it that didn't solve that issue and what was our user's feedback. And quite similarly, we can see the invert. So we do focus on the negative with filtering by one, but we also have the opportunity to focus with happy customers. And happy customers will give you an indication of where you're going in the right direction. And there's some comments like best chatbot ever and things like this. And you can start looking at why that is. Is it that they went through a step-by-step guide? And was this more a better approach than perhaps we've taken before and we haven't taken with other products, and maybe we should focus on it? So here, yeah, we can look at it in multiple areas. Even in the absence of customer comments, we can still see whether customers obviously resolved or not resolved their issue. And again, kind of leaning on that escalation point, where are customers escalating? Because we can see they've gone through, it's not just an abandonment stage, but they've still got an issue and they're still persistent to get an answer. So how do we get in front of that?
Thanks, Courtney. And I must say, we have a really amazing crowd with us today. There are more questions for you, Courtney. So coming up next, will Mavenoid sit inside a CRM like Zendesk Help Center? I'd like to know more about how we will embed this into Zendesk. I love the idea of not giving a customer a wall of text to read, but it's unclear how this links to our current system.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way, so for a today state, we utilize, or many of our customers do utilize the Zendesk Guide Help Center to date, but they implement Mavenoid either with a widget in the bottom right-hand corner, or they direct within the page itself with a button saying open troubleshooting assistant to try and direct customers there. So it can sit alongside a Zendesk environment, and we have optimizations where we can, or efficiencies to get content from Zendesk already. So if you were to join with Mavenoid, we can do an FAQ sync from your existing articles, present them. We can get more information of how successful they've been with our analytics and build on that over time. So here we can use that as an opportunity, like I said, to get an understanding of what our customers are searching for, what problems they're having, and really focus our content management efforts on the things that matter. So taking those high volume searches and making them into guided approaches, using more visuals, and from there we can start addressing the repetitive volume and then start focusing on more of the complex approaches. But Lena did at the start of this webinar give a bit of a exclusive, well, we say exclusive, I know there are a couple of our customers that I've spoken to on this call, but what we're working with at Mavenoid currently is how we can replace the Help Center experience. So do keep your eyes out for what's coming from us next.
What a teaser. Sounds really exciting, and we won't disappoint for sure. The next question is a perfect question about the future of the Help Center. So with VR, AR technology continuing to gain ground and grow in the field, do we see a world where VR, AR is an option for help centers? Microsoft, I believe, has advertised this as this potential use.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen the Microsoft example live at conferences before. But yeah, and we envisage this, and this is why one of the core pillars of future-proofing the Help Center is addressing the customer need. So keeping up with those technologies, and where we're seeing certain markets gain more adoption with VR, so especially with technicians and the likes, those that are on the manufacturing floor even, we can start to look at how we can implement VR or even AR for more interactive guidance. So where we're talking about step-by-step guides now, we're utilising that with the technologies we have today. And then again, learning from history, we need to keep an eye on where VR is being adopted mass market and how that plays a part in product support in the future. But yeah, certainly I can see the use of manuals and guidance being a core one for both of those cases.
That sounds very optimistic / futuristic. Another great question for you, Courtney, from Rich, is what are some KPIs we can focus on for help centers? Yeah. And this will be the big question, because I know that many help centers, as we mentioned before, only really provide the thumbs up and thumbs down. So it's thinking about what our goals are. So where we're thinking again about the direction rather than deflection, and whether we're answering customer queries, let's look at that. So how are we serving? So rather than how many tickets are coming through to us, well, how many problems have we solved? And off the back of that, of those that we've solved, how happy were our customers in the end? And by making that pairing, we can have an understanding end to end how our support function is playing a part in our customer happiness. Right now, we have that gap because the ratings are given in various places on an FAQ article. I'm not sure if it's rating the content. I don't know whether it's rating my product. I don't know whether it's rating my service. But here we have this combined view, what the user's searching for, what information they've been provided, whether it's solved their issue, and then ultimately
what is their thoughts and feelings on our brand post that interaction. So end to end, I think focusing on self-service resolutions, of course, is a key metric of how successful our help centre is, but it will get into the finer detail, something that certainly not used to. But if you can think about, Rich, how you measure your self-service tool within Mavenoid today is how we can bring that up to our help centre level on a wider level. And if we're directing customers to that place, we've got this end-to-end view, which we've never really had before. So exciting.
Hey, thanks for that. And again, encouraging you to let us know in the chat if you have any follow-up questions. And I think we have time for one more question. And this is not something that was answered during the session, but I know this is something that many of our customers care about. And Courtney, you mentioned that, with the rise of ChatGPT, many of our customers want to make sure that they control the channels and they're able to capture their customers and direct them to their authorized help centers and make sure that the content that they're interacting with is authorized by the brand. So what are some of the best practices that you can share for optimizing your help center content for search engines, for SEO, basically, to make sure that when the customer is typing up a question, the help center from the brand is the first link that pops up?
Yeah, and I could probably talk on SEO for a while, but we can target towards this. But where it's thinking about how our customers are searching. So if they have an issue, they're not Googling the solution because they don't know the solution some of the time. Sometimes they may do. But there may be different ways in which those customers are searching. So our keyword focus may be more towards the symptom rather than just purely the solution. And by pairing those, so for those that are utilising assistant web pages with Mavenoid, we'll know is that we have an issue, a problem, a symptom that's associated with a solution. By pairing both of those things together, it allows not only for the search on the symptom, but also for a search on the solution. And there are some benefits with this too, especially when we're looking at structures of how to or step by step. We'll go back to this, but it also holds a really good benefit for search engines as well. So with Mavenoid for step by step, we implement the how to in the structured data, which is essentially how Google crawls or searches the content. And this allows it to be surfaced on search engines as those step-by-step guides. So again, trying to bring that guided experience, not only from the dedicated place, but also on the results page. So directing them from immediately where they're searching for that answer. Yeah.
These are great recommendations, Courtney. Thanks for sharing. And I think we're doing great on time. We're just coming up on top of the hour. So I think we can start wrapping up this webinar. Thanks again for everyone who joined us today. And I really appreciate you sharing all of the insights in chat and having a really insightful discussion there and asking great questions to our presenter, Courtney. Like I said, we are going to share the recording and we'll also share out the presentation with everyone who signed up for this webinar. And again, please head to the PSC if there are any additional questions that you have and you want to discuss them with your peers, or if there's something else that you want to ask Courtney about. And thank you, Courtney. Great content as always, lots of fantastic insights. So thanks for running this webinar for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Lena.
Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you all around. Thanks. Bye.